Okay,
would
ready when you
tell
are.
them.
Oh.
What I would say about the flight service privatization was that we need to keep the employees informed. That was something that I think we still deal with government, is what information can be given to everyone and what do we hold close, and the gray area is what's in between. And people start making up,
The rumor mill kicks in,
Yes.
right?
and that can be very divisive,
Yes.
and employees feel shorted.
Mhm.
So I tried to keep as much information in going out about the flight service station program. And then it was said that Alaska would be grandfathered
Mhm.
because of the unique situation. And I do believe, and I've been retired 23 years this fall. That's a long time. So I don't know if they're still grandfathered, but I think there's still flight service stations.
Yes, there is. And they were not privatized like the Continental 48.
Good.
Right. Exactly.
And there's one of our fellows in PwC here who flies from Arizona to Dead Horse and does his time, and then he goes back to Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Who pays for that? I don't know. It's like Merlago. Who pays for that? I don't know.
Mhm.
Someone.
Right. So when you were in Alaska, I think the regional administrator actually controlled all lines of business, so to speak, in Alaska. There's right now.
No, that
No?
before, back about 1992 is when they went from directors to administrators.
That's when everything was straight
And then
line.
they went straight line
Okay.
with air traffic and AF. We had budget,
Mhm.
we had management systems, accounting, logistics. I think they ultimately became straight line. So there was little uneasiness with how things were going to go,
Right.
and cooperation was key, not always present, but key. And I enjoyed sparring off when I would go to the meetings in headquarters. And when you go from Alaska to Washington for a 3-hour meeting, and it's taken you 3 days to get there and back, but anyway, that was a great assignment. What I really liked was being out in the field, the bush as they call it up there. There was a King Air airplane that was usually available, and a lot of our flight standards guys were pilots, of course. They could fly us out. So I got to go everywhere.
Mhm.
I mean, it was just amazing.
I like that.
And then I really paid attention to the military in Alaska,
Mhm.
at Elmendorf and in Fairbanks, and the Coast Guard also. And so there was a unique group of generals, one admiral down in Juneau, myself, and I think there was one other SES in Anchorage that was director of Fish and Wildlife.
Oh, okay. That makes
So
sense.
it's a small group, but we did have government employee programs, and there was one luncheon a year, and you would recognize one from each group, and
Mhm.
there were, I just enjoyed, I excelled at that
Mhm.
because I like people,
Right.
and
For me, for reading old intercoms and trap line, they loved you. I mean,
I love them.
I never heard of, there was nothing ever written about, no grumbling or anything, which is amazing for a group of employees, I think.
It is, and the type of employees, we are
Right.
FAA, and then air traffic or other lines of business within FAA.
Mhm.
But what a wonderful, wonderful career.
How long were you in Alaska?
I was in Alaska 3.5 years.
3.5 years.
I retired in October of 1995.
Okay.
So I had 3 years Navy and 27 FAA, which makes 30.
Mm-hmm.
And I had made a big decision in the last 2 years that these children, called grandchildren, who had this woman fly into town and bring presents and let's go out to eat, and then I'd be gone. And They really, none of them had ever spent the night with me.
Oh my.
Well, they lived in New Hampshire and,
Oh, good point.
and Oregon and Washington, and I lived in Alaska.
Very difficult.
So, I made the decision to retire. And I made the decision that I didn't want to be a contractor.
Mhm.
I did not want to sit at the table with one of the people I had just worked with and, or some company selling me something that I
Mhm.
didn't think the FAA needed. I didn't want to do that. So I want to be a grandma. I want to have a church of my own, go every Sunday and help people, and continue to help PwC any way I could.
Fantastic.
So,
A rewarding retirement also.
yes, my sister and I drove the Alcan Highway from Anchorage to Seattle.
Oh
It was
wow.
so fun.
Oh, I
We
bet.
saw caribou and Dall sheep and swans on a lake and vistas that I can still see today.
What an experience. Mhm.
And in my retirement, because of great people that I had known and worked with,
Right.
I was elected into the Women in Aviation Hall of Fame in 1997. I think I'd been
Wow.
retired a couple of years.
Fantastic.
And then in 2003, I was again notified that it was the 100th anniversary of Orville and Wilbur Wright's,
Mhm. Right.
and they wanted to list 100 women in aviation that made a difference,
Right.
and I was one.
Oh, fantastic.
It
What an
was.
honor.
It
Oh.
was. To stand next to people, there was someone there representing Amelia Earhart, and there was all these wonderful women and powder puff racers and all that
Right.
sort of military. There were some Russian women,
Mhm.
and that's through Women in Aviation, so I've been a member of that group for a long time, but that
Yeah.
was,
What an honor.
it was a great honor.
Oh.
It was a great honor.
You've had a fantastic career. Looking back, is there anything you would have done differently?